Growing up as kids, many current NBA players recall the days of their youth where they visualized themselves getting drafted to the NBA. For some, it was a dream come true, and for others, it was a lost fantasy that vanished, never to return. But in both of these instances, there was a common goal. The objective within everyone's eyes was to be the one to finally make it. NBA superstar Damian Lillard is the one who made it. Although he is now an NBA star on the rise, many fans are not aware of just how he got to where he is today. In order to truly understand Damian Lillard, you must first understand where he came from. In today's video, we take a trip into the past to explore the shocking true story behind Damian Lillard's rise to stardom. From his childhood, family, high school/college years, and all the way into his NBA career, we will be taking a look at everything you need to know about Damian Lillard. With all that being said, let's begin. Welcome to NBA Insider.
Westbrook shows from the basketball, goes to the rim!
Damian Lamont Ollie Lillard was born on July 15, 1990 in Oakland, California to parents Gina and Houston Lillard. He was brought up in a large yet poor family that included a bunch of aunts and uncles and even dozens of more cousins. Lillard's family was so close-knit. They would always have each other's backs and show love and support through both good and bad times. For them, family was everything. Growing up as a Christian child, Damian Lillard was raised in a poverty-stricken neighborhood of Oakland. At the time of his birth, Oakland was ranked as one of the most crime-ridden cities in the United States. As a matter of fact, it had one of the highest murder rates in America. With a population of roughly 395,000 people, the city had a violent crime rate of 1,683 per 100,000 residents. Due to this negative exposure at such a young age, Lillard became extremely familiar with drugs, gangs, and prostitution. Luckily for him, his father was around to help steer him away from all the damaging influences of the streets. As a matter of fact, Lillard's father, Houston Lillard Sr., was more than just a role model. For as long as he can remember, his dad has always been his best friend. According to Damian, he would always show his support by going to his basketball games, helping him with his studies, or just simply giving him life advice. Damian's dad was such an outstanding leader that some of the kids in East Oakland who had no father in their household considered him to be their own. His father was everything a child needed growing up. Thanks to him, Damian did not get caught up in the negative lifestyles associated with Oakland streets at the time. Instead, he began focusing on the one thing that he still does to this day: sports. Damian himself would say, "The biggest thing I dealt with growing up were the distractions. There were so many things I could have taken part in. There were gangs and just the street life. I decided to stick with basketball." When Damian was 8 years old, he first played for a Pee-wee football team. After all, his older brother, Houston Lillard Jr., was a future pro indoor football quarterback, so it seemed like it would be ideal to keep it running in the family. However, after just one season of playing, he quit. You see, Damian Lillard wasn't exactly built as hefty as his 6', 215-pound brother. In fact, he wasn't that physically strong at all. So instead of forcefully pursuing a football career, he decided to switch to a sport that he felt was more appropriate: basketball. As a kid, Damian had dreams of one day becoming the next great point guard to come out of Oakland. Keep in mind that this was the same place that had produced NBA legends such as Gary Payton and Jason Kidd. But despite his love for the game of basketball, he did not have an actual basketball net that he could play on. At the time, his parents did not have the financial means to provide him one, but Damian did not let this ruin his focus. Instead, he began playing basketball at his grandmother's house where he taught himself how to shoot, but there was no rim, no mesh, and no backboard. So how exactly did he learn?
As a kid, you used to practice and you didn't have a hoop, and you had to use your imagination, and I don't understand how that works. Explain that to me.
Well, it started off on a tree. It was a tree in front of my grandmother's house, and I would shoot over the tree branch because that was my hoop. And then, you know, my grandfather cut down the tree, so I ended up nailing a milk cart to the telephone pole. And when you got a telephone pole, it's round, so you can't shoot off the backboard, so it actually helped me learn how to shoot over the rim better.
That's amazing. So you didn't have a backboard, you didn't be banking it off, you had to just get it exactly in.
I had to shoot it right over, because if I had the telephone pole, it wasn't no telling where the ball was gonna go.
Basically, at his grandmother's house, there was a tree that had an awkwardly grown branch which naturally curled into a circle, almost like an actual rim. Using this tree, Lillard taught himself how to shoot a ball. If he hit the branch, this meant missing the shot. He would use this tree to his advantage every time he would go to his grandparents' house. Unfortunately for him, the tree was eventually cut down. However, in order for him to keep distracted away from the streets, his grandfather immediately tried to solve this problem. So he decided to cut out the bottom of a milk crate and nail it to a telephone pole, which kept Lillard practicing. With no backboard to guide his shot in, Lillard had to make the ball go straight through the milk crate in order to score. As difficult as this was, he eventually began improving on his shot, so much so that he almost became completely accurate. And as much as he tried to keep away from trouble, Lillard would still get himself into problems every now and then, like when he got suspended for fighting in the middle of his 8th grade year. After escaping the 8th grade, Damian was sent to Arroyo High School. Although the suburban school's student body was predominantly Caucasian, life for the freshman didn't require a huge adjustment. He played varsity basketball, standing at just 5'5" as one of only 2 black kids on the roster. As the youngest yet best player on his team, Arroyo High School's head coach gave Damian the most playing time out of all of his players. And although the team became better and more competitive with Damian as its top player, the amount of minutes he was getting in comparison to the rest of the team wasn't received well by his teammates' parents. More time for Damian meant a lot less for their children. Because of this, players began quitting in the middle of the season and the coach was eventually fired. At this point, the situation was clear. Lillard knew he couldn't return to Arroyo, so for his sophomore year, he transferred to St. Joseph Notre Dame High School in Alameda, California. This was a private school that was most famous for producing former NBA point guard Jason Kidd. St. Joseph's had a men's basketball coach named Don Lippy who was not easy on Damian. He would give Lillard a hard time, telling him that he was too aggressive as a player and that the chances of him making it to the NBA were extremely slim. Aside from this, the other obstacle standing in the way of the 5'5" point guard were the 3 senior guards playing ahead of him. So for a majority of the season, Damian Lillard rode the bench. By the end of the year, he looked to transfer again due to the lack of playing time. Damian himself would say, "I straight went home to my dad and was like, I can't go back there. He didn't fight me on it at all. So I transferred to Oakland High and I was on after that." Lillard played for coach Orlando Watkins at Oakland High School for his final 2 years. This would become the 3rd high school he had attended in his search for a program that might enable him to earn a college scholarship. It was there at Oakland High that his basketball journey truly began. As a junior at Oakland High School, Damian stood out from the rest of the players, averaging 19.4 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. His development also grew during the summer of 2007 while playing for the Oakland Rebels, which was a premier amateur athletic union basketball team. By his senior year, Lillard had developed into one of the best prep players in the greater Oakland area. The 5'11" point guard was averaging 22.4 points, 5.2 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 2.4 steals, and 0.1 blocks per game while leading his high school team to a 23-9 record. He even returned to St. Joseph's and torched his old team, making sure to address his former coach on several trips back down the court. Despite all of these outstanding performances, Damian Lillard was not heavily recruited out of high school and was only regarded as a 2-star prospect. And if that wasn't bad enough, it was also around this time that Lillard would come across an incident that he would never forget in his life. One night while coming home from practice, Damian found himself standing alone waiting for an AC transit bus at the Eastmount Mall station. You see, Eastmount is not an ideal neighborhood to be in, especially at nighttime, but it was a high school senior's daily transfer home. Oakland High sat on 4th Street, but Dame lived up on 106th. His varsity team always practiced last after the freshmen's, junior varsity, and girls squads. So every school night around 9 p.m. he'd have to take the bus home late. While waiting for his bus, Damian spotted 3 guys wearing black hoodies approaching him from a distance. Within seconds, the 3 males had him surrounded. "Empty your pockets," one of them yelled before grabbing Damian's backpack strap. The basketball star immediately pushed him off, stepped back, and prepared himself to fight. All 3 suspects looked about his age. 2 were shorter and slimmer than him. Damian recalled the incident himself, saying, "When they walked up, they told me to empty my pockets and I was like, I don't have nothing. My first thought was I'm going to try to swing on one of them and then they're going to jump me. One of them reached out like he was going to grab me and he broke the strap of my backpack. When I pushed him back, that's when the dude pulled the gun out. I just put my hands up like, man, I'm just going home. I have nothing. Y'all can take whatever. I don't really have nothing." Lillard continued the story saying, "I was really scared. I was in so much shock that I don't think it even processed all the way. All it took was to pull the trigger and I would have been dead on the spot." Luckily for him, that wasn't the case. Instead, the suspects simply took the $10 he had in his pocket. They didn't even bother taking his phone. However, as a last-second message, they dumped the school books and homework out of his backpack down into a nearby sewer. Following the robbery, Damian immediately hurried to a nearby McDonald's and started calling all his family members. Finally, his brother's girlfriend arrived to drive him home. After hearing about this incident, Lillard's father was extremely upset and made sure that from then on out, he was never to take the bus again. Despite this, Damian would still make it to practice every single day. His brother's girlfriend would take off from work when his mom was working and she would pick him up and drop him off every day. If his mom didn't do it, she did it. And if she didn't do it, his dad did. A short time after, he got his license and began driving himself. himself. His persistence and drive for the sport he loves so much would eventually lead to him becoming the successful individual he is today. But despite a tireless work ethic and unquestioned drive to be great, Lillard's chances of becoming Oakland's next big thing were slim. While Lillard was a standout for both Oakland High School and the Oakland Rebels, it was the Oakland Soldiers who annually fielded calls from the top collegiate programs in the school. This was the same team that always lured the top players in the country, made regular appearances on ESPNU and even ESPN from time to time. During Lillard's days playing AAU, the Oakland Soldiers roster included the likes of Brandon Jennings, who was the #1 player in the 2008 class, Drew Gordon, the number 24 player, and Matt Simpkins, who was number 80 overall. While the Soldiers players got all the publicity, Lillard was nowhere to be found on ESPN's rankings. In fact, by the time he graduated from high school in 2008, Damian Lillard was the 48th ranked point guard in his class, was a 2-star recruit, and had no national, state, or positional ranking listed. To top it off, the 5'11" guard received no scholarship offers from any schools, let alone any major ones. Brandon Jennings, on the other hand, received offers from every school in the country. Gordon had everyone from UCLA to Duke and Kentucky after him, and Simpkins received looks from most major Pac-10 schools as well as Memphis. Unfortunately for Damian Lillard, John Calipari and Ben Howland were not the ones showing up on his caller ID. Instead, following his senior season, it was Coach Randy Ray of Weber State University who was the first one to recruit and eventually offer Lillard a scholarship. Of course, Lillard would accept the scholarship offer to play for the mid-major school located in Ogden, Utah. Despite this, it was actually his lack of recruitment that motivated him. Randy called him a quote-unquote self-made player and said he spent more time in the gym than anyone he has coached in 22 years. Following his high school graduation and commitment to the Wildcats, the East Oakland native ended up growing 3 inches. As a now athletic and explosive guard, the 6'2", 189-pound Lillard would continue to hustle. As a freshman in college, Damian Lillard established himself as one of the top players in the NCAA Big Sky Conference, while unanimously being selected as the Big Sky Freshman of the Year and also being named to the Big Sky All-Conference First Team. He also became the first freshman to earn All-Conference First Team honors since Rodney Stuckey in 2006, and the first Wildcat to ever earn Freshman of the Year honors. The following year, his success would continue as a sophomore after being named the 2009-2010 Big Sky Conference MVP, earning First Team All-Conference honors for a second year in a row, and leading the Big Sky Conference in overall scoring at 19.9 points per game. But still, he felt that he needed to improve. So the following summer, Lillard began lifting weights and got even stronger. He also started watching his game films and saw that his shot was flat and worked to develop a rainbow jumper that marks a great shooter. Each day, he aimed to make 200 high arcing shots over a net and into a rebounding machine, all while sitting down. He took another 600 shots while standing, and when he returned the following season, Damian Lillard shattered expectations. During his 4th year of college, Damian had one of the greatest seasons in Weber State history after leading the Wildcats to a 25-7 overall record, leading the nation in scoring for most of the season, and finishing second in the country with an average of 24.5 points per game. In fact, that season was the best single season average in Weber State history. He was also named the Weber State Male Athlete of the Year for the 2nd time in his career, earned All-American honors, and much more. Damian broke every school record possible and gained national recognition for his combination of athleticism and shooting stroke. A variety of schools, including St. Mary's and San Diego State, tried to acquire him to play for them, but when push came to shove, Lillard stayed loyal to Coach Ray and Weber State. Lillard had one of the greatest careers in Weber State history and finished second in career scoring with 1,934 points. In April of 2011, following an incredible career with the Wildcats, Lillard decided to enter the NBA draft. He was selected in the first round with the 6th overall pick by the Portland Trail Blazers. He repaid the team almost immediately, averaging 19 points and 6.5 assists per game his rookie season and becoming only the 4th player in NBA history to win Rookie of the Year with a unanimous vote. Fast forward 6 years into the future and Damian Lillard is still dominating on the basketball court to this day. He is regarded by many to be one of the best players in the NBA. As a matter of fact, he recently had one of the best seasons of his career, posting averages of 27 points, 4.9 rebounds, 5.9 assists, 0.9 steals, and 0.3 blocks. These stats are pretty hard to comprehend, especially when considering all of the struggles that he has gone through to get to where he is today. To this day, his work ethic hasn't changed much either. He's usually the first one to arrive at practice and the last one to leave, and it really shows in his game. He's very good in the open court, he's a good decision maker, he's explosive, he can really push the ball, he can score in the open floor, and so much more. Although Lillard is now an NBA player, he still feels like that high school sophomore fighting to get on the court, or that 8th grader fighting a suspension, or even that senior who almost had his brains blown out. And yeah, sure, he is now a 2-time NBA All-Star and the highest paid player in in Portland Trailblazers history with a huge Adidas endorsement, but his climb to the top was not easy. Before the making of this video, I honestly never knew that Damian Lillard had such an interesting history. This is the same guy who was the only player in NBA history to make all All-Star Weekend events. The same guy who led his team to the playoffs with 40+ wins even after LaMarcus Aldridge, Nicholas Batum, and Wesley Matthews left. The same guy who stood up to all the challenges life threw at him. My respect for him has gone through the roof. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. This just goes to show that no matter what situation you're put in, no matter what hardships you're going through, there will always be brighter days. From being a scrawny little kid from the streets of Oakland to an amazing athlete who made his way to the top, Damian Lillard is a perfect example of this. The day Damian Lillard retires, he will especially be able to reminisce the old days of hustling in the street and ultimately have the satisfying thought that he has finally made it. And that concludes the video. As always, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. If I made any mistakes or missed anything that you felt should have been included, please let me know. Also, if you have any recommendations for future videos such as interesting stories or topics like this, please feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. As always, thanks for watching NBA Insider.